Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, Africa.
Hello and welcome, beloveds, to another episode of Ask Dr. Mumbi. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How are you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all your ways and that you're moving into living life truly on your own terms. We really want to thank every single one of you that is subscribed to the channel. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks to everyone that comments, etc., etc. You know, it's interesting to see where people's minds and spirits are at. And yeah, one of the questions, we've started this series of Ask Dr. Mumbi. One of the questions I always get is, where is Africa's power? Where is our individual power as melanated beings? How come we can't use that power, call upon that power, etc., etc., to help us to move mountains, for example? It is our ancestors that created the pyramids and many other wonderful things across Eden. Many of those things are actually, the final remaining ones have really been hit hard. There were a lot of sacred sites in Ethiopia's Tigray region, for example. A lot of confusion. I didn't want to go too much into the news of what was happening there, but during the whole confusion that happened, a lot of our ancient manuscripts were lost, etc., etc. And then an Ethiopian sister got in touch with me and said the same. There had been fires in some of Ethiopia's mountains. Remember, I told you there was a fire here caused by the British Army, which destroyed like 10,000 acres of rich, land for elephants, etc., etc. No word from our government, so that just shows you our government is a British government. That's part of the problem. But all these things, so there's been a lot of destruction. There's a recent fire that happened at Table Mountain, etc., etc., where they say a lot of our ancient African texts were destroyed. They were in some library. Well, we weren't accessing them anyway, so. But beloveds, this world, I told you, it's run by wizards and warlocks and witches, etc., etc. And, we're told, even the scriptures will tell you, because there's a lot of truth in the scriptures, just as there is a lot of lies and manipulation, that in the beginning was a word. And the word has power, beloveds. But because we speak this foreign Mzungu tongue, we've disempowered ourselves because we don't know the words of power anymore. We don't even know the words of our gods, our ancestors. I told you guys, it's so important, especially if you're on the African continent and you're serious about your spiritual walk. It is so important to write down the names of your ancestors, at least 12 generations down. And guys are in lockdown, so what else do you have to do? But it is so important. So at least then you're creating, you're actually creating how do you call it? You're creating like a canvas for yourself, because the spiritual world is more real than the physical world. And the greatest disadvantage of this physical world is they have really lured us into giving so much faith to these two eyes and forgetting about the first eye. And then everything in our diet is done to make sure that the first eye never opens. But those are stories for other days. The power in Africa lies not only in certain words, beloveds, but also in our melanin. I didn't even know that certain instruments of power, like the Ankh, for example, cannot be activated by anyone who is not a melanated being. So we have to know that our ancestors were extremely advanced, more advanced than, the nefarious entities using the Mzungu vessel to kind of manipulate and control humanity right now. They were way more advanced, way more sophisticated than that. And if they had the knowledge to build the pyramids, they would have. What Babylon is using right now is lesser magic, beloveds. I've told you, a much lesser magic, the one they can tap into that is more like, using humans and blood sacrifice. So using the life force of others to achieve your agenda, because you do not know how to generate that life force yourself. You just don't have the power because you're not a creator. You see, us as melanated beings, we have the power to generate enough power that will create something. We have extremely powerful beings walking the planet right now, beloveds. they're not hidden really, but they're just getting their things together. They're getting their lives together. But such beings, beloveds, have the power to call on the power of water, the power of fire, the power of air, the power of stones, to cause mayhem and destruction. And that is a higher magic, beloveds. We have access to a higher magic, a higher power, a higher reality. And part of it is in the words, beloveds. But part of it is raising our vibration to a certain level, so that we can even be noticed by the spirits that bestow this power. I don't want to lose people, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. But the reason we're not seeing a lot of, the reason we're not seeing a lot of signs and wonders is because the people with the real power have not yet been given the authority to move into action, because they are there. And I told you, enough of us have made it. But there does need to be a cleansing. There does need to be a clearing. And that's kind of what we're witnessing right now. Because those of weak mind and weak spirit should not be part of the rebuilding. I mean, the ancestors have said it, it's not even about anyone saying anything. Because if you're weak in mind and you're weak in spirit, you will continuously sell out your people. You don't even have the strength to, and nothing can be shared with you. But our power, beloveds, what is being used, yes, this is our power. What is being used against us now, perception magic, all this manipulation of basically the 7, universal principles and many others, which are being inverted and manipulated to mash us up. This is all lesser magic. The people using this lesser magic don't have the power to create anything. They can only destroy. And if we were to realize the jealousy and envy that the entity that is controlling the Mzungu actually has against us, we take this whole situation a bit more seriously. There's a lot to be said about, if you go to the evangelical churches, they talk about speaking in tongues, and if you speak in tongues, you get in touch with, the Most High. I really don't know what the Spirit, the Holy Spirit touches you and you start speaking in a foreign tongue, etc., etc. There's something to that, beloveds. There are certain, if you raise your vibration high enough, there are certain power words that the Most High and your ancestors and your guardian angels can drop into your spirit, and you can say it and things happen. But the focus right now should not be on seeking this power, but on preparing ourselves. And I've talked about this over and over again, how we prepare ourselves. It's so important, beloveds. Know that power is there. Know that as a child of the Creator or the creative force, as part of that creative force, you have the powers to create many, many things here on earth. But you have to be vibrating much, much higher and see yourself above what is happening here. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, Africa.
Welcome back, beloveds, to another episode of Ask Dr. Mumbi. My name is Dr. Mumbi Seraki. Special shout out to our Patreon family. Thank you so much for supporting us and enabling us to continue to bring you all the, spiritual awakening information that our people need at this time. As we said before, we've moved away from the news because that matrix is over, beloveds. The news does not matter anymore. We're moving into a new world global system that they want to create, but we're also reaching a crossroads where there are those who will move it, by ignorance or by, laziness or just by sheer bad luck. Will be moving into what Babylon is creating for them. But there are also the chosen ones, the ancient ones, the anointed, whatever you want to call them, the avatars, the Christed ones who have mastered, earth, air, wind, and fire. They walk among us. And the thing is, a lot of our power, a lot of our ancestral power can only be done by certain DNA and certain lineage. And that DNA and lineage in many of us it's coming online, it's being activated, it's being upgraded to the point where we are being made creators on this earth. And the focus for us should not be to how do I get that power, etc., etc. But the focus should be how do I raise my vessel where I can hold and contain that power? Because the powers of creation, beloveds, demand a higher mind than the powers of manipulation or destruction. And the way the Babylon, dragon or the Babylon devil, the Babylon Satan, whatever you want to call him, the way that he is able to perpetuate himself is by using the life force of others through blood sacrifice. That's why the Bible focuses so much on God sacrificing his only son. And so many of our leaders for generations, beloveds, have had to sacrifice their sons and daughters for power. It's such a low-level magic. The real power lies in forgotten tongues. So much was done to make sure that people didn't speak their ancient tongues, but instead spoke this Babylon language. So much was done to even take our languages like Gikuyu and actually write it with the Muzungu words, which are also a spell, diluting our language, beloveds. And many of our African tongues are like higher level. And you'll see, like in the Gikuyu language, we don't have words for rape. We don't have words for murder. There's certain negative, like words that are in English that just don't exist. And that should be an indicator. So the power is in the tongue, beloveds. And you must purify your tongue and your mind so that you're so clear. Because even though we may not have, they may have erased our languages, etc., etc., it's still in our DNA. It's still right here. And if you elevate yourself to the highest thinking mind where you're beyond the pandemic, you're beyond the political situation, you do not entertain any kind of distraction through the movies, etc., etc., you're really out of the Babylon system as much as possible, then your ancestors and the Most High can actually entrust you with some key words that will do some amazing things. Because there are so much of our power as a melanated people, beloveds, has never been opened. They could never access it, and they never will. But we can. And that is where our restoration lies, is in rebuilding the destroyed shrines. Finding out where these shrines were to begin with. Many will be surprised that the Mzungus have put themselves all over these shrines. But in rebuilding the destroyed shrines, and the most important destroyed shrine to build is yourself. so that the spirit can enter you. But beloveds, when you're weak, the high frequency of like the creation spirit, etc., you can't handle that. You can't say those power words. You have to be so powerful. Your vessel has to be so powerful. And right now it's really been weakened. So if you really want to be tapping into this kind of power, it doesn't just happen like, okay, guys, go look at this book and get these words. Anything that has been written or is out there is not the real thing, beloveds. Even the manuscripts they took to to the Vatican and all their, the British museums and the French museums, that's not the real deal. And they know it. But they even needed our lesser magic to create and maintain this world. So if they're using the lowest of our lowest, and we can just tap into the highest of our highest like that, then you should really feel the importance of getting yourself together. That is the absolute most important thing. Getting yourself together. Turning your back on Babylon. Completely turning your back on Babylon. Moving in righteousness and in truth. So that the ancestors, who are highly advanced beings, and the Most High can actually work with you and bestow upon you great gifts, great powers. Because the power to build the pyramids is still among us now. It can still be tapped in to. We are the ones who could move mountains. With a little faith of a mustard seed, we could move mountains. We could command a mountain to move into the ocean, to move into the sea. You know that phrase. And it would do that. So the truth is, beloveds, that the real power of our people is just waiting for us to grow up enough to be able to wield it. The only thing you can do, because if you have not worked on yourself and you try and access different powers, etc., you'll be working with very lesser powers, which, there's a boomerang effect, there's a cause and effect. And you can shield yourself from the effect, but those are stories that people don't have that knowledge. So you'd really be exposing yourself. So now what you can do as a creative being, as you're working on yourself, is to declare the things you want to appear in this world. Declare the situation you want our people to be in. Declare our liberation. Chant it, put it on your altar, write it down and throw it in a fire, Write it, fold it up and put it in your shrine. Or in the oldest tree in your, in your compound, whatever. Start there. Just start there, beloveds. And then work on detoxing and purifying yourself so that the next phase can appear. The spiritual world is more real than this physical world, beloveds. And we must come online spiritually. But just know, the power that the Babylon system is using right now is our lesser magic. But for us to elevate and tap into that highest level creative power, we have to raise ourselves up. Until next time, tuko pamoja.